On November 27th, Hello Games Studios released its Foundation update for No Man's Sky, a game that has long since been forgotten by most of us. No Man's Sky released in August of 2016, riding atop the biggest hype train that the world had ever seen, and got slammed as one of the most overrated and overhyped games of any generation of video games. Solemnly and suspiciously quiet until now, Sean Murray and his team are also facing a marketing investigation by UK company Ad Watchdog for use of false advertising and misrepresentation of their final product. No Man's Sky retailed for $60, but it now sits at a 40% decrease in price at $36 US and an average user rating of 30%. The only way for No Man's Sky to sell copies nowadays is to improve the game by patching it. Patching it can fix some issues, such as adding features and make the game better, and in turn hopefully sway the player base into a more optimistic view of the game, which will help bring more positive ratings and impressions of the game to help sell more copies. That is the general idea with patches. But this all feeds into a larger topic that I want to discuss. Are developers responsible for providing free patches for their games, and if so, when and why? Patching games costs money. Tim Schafer was once quoted stating that patching a console game costs $40,000 US, and that's only a non-profit earning patch. If that figure doesn't include the cost of rents, labor, or depreciation of technology, then that number goes up even more. Of course it will be cheaper on Steam's PC platform, but to make it easy, let's just say that it does cost companies a decent chunk of money to patch their games. It's not free to employ people and pay your bills after all. Before I answer the main question of this video, let's briefly explore the evolution of patching and the history behind it all. Video games used to be released on physical discs, cartridges, and operating systems that limited the way that the video game content could be supported. Once you bought a game during the 90s, hell even to the 2000s before the PlayStation 3, you got the disc and that was the end of it. Expansion packs solved the issue of updating non-updatable games. For the unaware, they provide supplemental game material to existing video games. They provided extra content and patch fixes for a small price, usually around a third or a fourth of the price of the base game. You don't see them a lot these days because new technology has allowed standard patching to take place directly over our PCs and consoles, even when they're powered off, and DLC and standalone expansions have replaced them in popularity due to being more profitable. But in the past, they were the only source of updating and adding to our favorite games. The only downsides was that you had to own the base game before you bought it. This created issues with the common player not understanding what versions of the game they needed to own to get it working properly, and sometimes people would buy expansions in isolation only to have to return them because they didn't own the original game. It all became a little bit messy because of this, and companies would lose money on returns and having to account for return taxes in lieu of this. But today, expansion packs are rare. Patching is the name of the game because it can happen on the fly. So I ask again, should developers have to invest in providing free patches? I answer that with a yes on 3 accounts. Firstly, developers have a responsibility to provide working software for a reasonable period of time. Every video game that is released today has an absolute obligation to work as intended on the platform which they release it on. If the game ceases to work or becomes buggy and unpredictably optimized, the developer has an obligation to patch it. What developers are not responsible for are changes in technology that affect the game's ability to provide working order. If a company releases a game during the Windows 10 generation, and let's say hypothetically a new operating system gets released to the public and becomes popular a year later, it's not the responsibility of the developer to pay for the labor and the rent required to produce a patch for it to work on this new operating system. It's a privilege. What they do have an obligation to do, however, is to inform the consumer of which platforms and configurations the game is intended to work on. Disclosure is a really big thing this industry needs to work on. Purchasing a video game in 2016 only guarantees a consumer that the game will work on 2016 hardware. After all, game developers are not fortune tellers and they can't see what's coming in the technological future. We shouldn't and can't claim the right that developers need to be our personal servants for providing future updates to make their games work indefinitely. Secondly, developers are responsible for providing patches when it comes to the realm of promises versus expectations. No Man's Sky, you're the perfect example of this, my friend. When it was released, we expected so much more than what was delivered. More so not only because of the hype that Hello Games Studio allowed to blossom out of control, but also on the fact that they inherently lied about what to expect in the game.
Will you be able to play with your friends?
Yeah.
Is there a competitive element to this game?
Yeah, if you want that, yes.
They will need to plan and they will need to cooperate with other players to an extent.
What we want is a sense of you playing and a sense of other people being in that universe.
Right.
but
And thirdly and lastly, developers should be obligated to patch games to deal with exploitation and cheating in multiplayer games. Fostering a healthy player base in a multiplayer game is not only smart for keeping player counts up, but also because it can ruin the experience of honest game players. If you've got cheaters running wild in your game and it's affecting the happiness of your competitive player base, you're obligated to spend time working on your anti-piracy kit to ensure it doesn't plague the game for everybody else. The patch to No Man's Sky this Sunday most certainly cost the company a lot of money to put out. Just look at it. It's huge, and the improvements made within it could be the start of something greater that could turn No Man's Sky into the game that we all expected and were promised. It's just one example of when a developer should be obligated to patch its game free of charge, and they did. These sort of patches shouldn't need to happen. In a perfect world, developers would simply patch games that need small fixes for performance or bugs. But when not every publisher is trustworthy, it won't always work out this way. Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video, by all means hit the thumbs up button and subscribe if you enjoy our format, and have a kick-ass day.